So who are you, man?
You fucking asshole. No, no,
You had to know that was coming. You had to know. Who are
no,
you?
we're not. Yeah, I
Who are
mean,
you?
there's a reason I didn't text you back on that. We're not doing that right now.
Why?
I don't want the 10th degree,
I think it's really interesting. I don't think a lot of people really think about it. I
I
think
think about it constantly. I literally think about it daily. And I've been thinking about it daily for the last fucking 15 years of my life. So the
What do you think
fact
about
that I
most
don't,
about it?
huh?
I don't think most I think a lot of people go through their day to day and they're just, kind of swimming as hard as they can to keep up. But I think having reflection on who you are and understanding how that guides you in the decisions that you make and how you are where you are in life, and where you want to go, I think it's important. So
What's
like,
here's why I'm reactive is again, I think about this all the time. I think about it from a personal context and I think about it from a business context. From a personal context, usually you should use that to inform your business context to some degree, right? Personal goals impact business goals. Where I have a huge issue is I have two conflicting views that are constantly in battle with each other. I have the view of I'm smart, I'm driven, I'm capable, I can achieve great, amazing things. I look around, I drive throughout Colorado and I see, hey, that's a nice neighborhood. How the hell did all these different people afford to live in that neighborhood when, I have a nice house, but it's not like this baller house, right?
yeah,
I don't live like a lavish lifestyle. I live a nice lifestyle. I'm comfortable, but I look around, I see all these families, I see all these people, and I'm like, I don't run into that many driven or intelligent people that frequently, truthfully. And granted, it could just be because I don't get out much, but I'm like, look, I can accomplish more than these people, and I would love to have an upgraded lifestyle, as I'm sure a lot of people would. So that's a big part. The other part is you got to be happy where you are because life isn't about the future. The future does not exist, right? Stoicism, a lot of philosophy is you got to be happy with what you already have, and more material goods, more consumerism isn't going to benefit you tangibly in that very many ways. So I'm in this constant conflict of I want to achieve more, but I also want to be happy with where I'm at. You see what I'm saying? So it's like from a personal level, like that just makes it incredibly difficult to create goals because it's like be happy with where you are, but also try to make $250,000 a year, like, become a millionaire, like save for
yeah.
your future, have a nicer house with a fucking pantry, you know, that
But
type of stuff.
think about this. So I think this is why I think the question is so difficult. The question of who are you? It's really challenging because when you're asked who are you, you think about, well, who are other people, right? That's what your response was immediately. I drive around and I see all these nice houses and I wonder, how do these people get there? Maybe some of them are trust fund beneficiaries. Maybe some of them are small business owners. And this is who I am. Can you hear that? Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad for you. Um, there's the thing is like, how do you define who you are? Are we defined by the things that we have? Are we defined by the job and the thing that we do to make money? And I don't know. For me, I'm in a similar space as you, right? Like I have all of this experience. I've got these accolades and these diplomas and this job experience. And it's like, man, I could be making so much more money, but that's not who I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I honestly don't care that obviously I want to be comfortable, similar to you. I want to enjoy where I am, but who I am, like when I get asked that question, I'm a I'm a father first. I'm a musician. I'm a geomancer. I'm a problem solver. I don't know, I'm kind of a hippie. Um, I don't know. It's weird. It's like this society and civilization that we live in, we've I think part of the American spirit is like the yeoman. You are defined by what you do and you add value and you build things and you are a great entrepreneur and you're a capitalist and you go out there and you work hard and you can retire or buy stuff. It's like, but I don't know if that's really who. I don't really know if that's how people are defined.
You brought up activities, and I think that's key, but my challenge still lies in I don't have very strong passions
Yeah.
and I don't have very strong goals. And without passions and goals, defining identity is incredibly difficult. I bring this up all the time. Anthony has been in golf since he was 13 years old, and he is still in golf, and he has a passion for golf, and he loves golf. And I'm like, good for fucking him. You know what I mean? Like, it is such bullshit that this guy found his calling when he was 13 years old because I still have never found mine. There's nothing that I'm like, this is a cause I really believe in, or this is a lifestyle I really want, or that, I just don't have anything that's that huge of a driving factor to me. And
Yeah.
additionally, in terms of like passions and hobbies, like there's things I enjoy doing. I love playing sand volleyball. I like going out with my friends, you know, but there's nothing that's like, this is who I am and this is a driving factor behind a lifestyle that I want to lead, and I think that's just super challenging.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think when you look around, like obviously everything is relative, right? And so defining who you are to some degree, you have to look around and see what other people are and what the possibilities are that exist out there and choose where you want to be. And there's a notion that you are who you are and it's whether it's a combination of genetics or destiny or the environment that you grew up in, that there's this immutable, unchanging soul within you, and regardless of the body you were born into or the whatever it is in this the new age spoke, you are who you are, right? And you need to be your true best self. I don't know about all of that. I think lately what I've been really grappling with is, I do love mapping technology. I happened into the industry and I really enjoy it. I never really put the pieces together very explicitly up until right before I started my consultancy and wanted to lean into geospatial technology consulting. Um, but when I think about who I am, it's like, is geospatial technology my passion? Um, no, not really. My passion is doing things outside and experiencing things and building things. And geospatial technology just happens to be so tangential and mixed into that it's a nice business outlet for me to express who I am in a business format, right? And I think what a lot of people, and for some people, their business and their work, that is who they are, and that's their passion, that's what they love to do. For me, my business is a means to an end. And I think for most people, business and their work and their jobs are a means to an end. They want that house. They want to provide their kids the education that they think is valuable. They want to go on cruises or travel the world or whatever it is that they want to do. Their job and their business is a way to provide that financial stability to open up those opportunities. And so I think when you're evaluating who are you, to think about what you do to make money, unless you're doing something that you love, it's a really quick way to lose who you are, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't define yourself by your job. I think it is. I think what a lot of people get confused on in this subject, though, is people create this distinct barrier. This is my work life. This is my regular life. And that mentality just drives me crazy because your work life is such a massive percentage of your daily life. I mean, if you're going to work 8 hours a day, you're maybe staying up, what, 15 hours a day? So it's more than 50%, if not more, 5 days a week, which is, I mean, that's a huge chunk basically. And so when people say, oh, this is a means to an end, or this is my life, this is what I care about here. And I'm not going to make friends with anyone I work with at work because that's just work, or this is just some evil company, but I do it because they give me a paycheck. It's like that is crazy mentality. I'm not saying you need to love your job, but I'm saying you need to enjoy the time that you're spending 50% of your life doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, that's why I'm so excited about this project that we're launching really as a family, right? Uh, we sold our home in North Florida last year and bought a truck and a trailer, traveled the country with the explicit goal of experiencing different types of campgrounds and family gathering spaces and cultures and communities and foods and offerings and live music and to get a real pulse on the ways families experience their environment across the country and to find a place with acreage where we can build a family gathering space and spend our time as a family building and creating and facilitating uh, people forging better connections with their kids through experiences in the outdoors around food and crafts and just cool people, right? And so while I think I'll always have a portion of my professional um, time spent on technology consulting in the geospatial realm because I do love the technology and the way that it's used. And while I'm searching for land to acquire, I'm using, you know, 3D elevation data from the national map. I'm using QGIS. I'm using parcel data. I'm pulling all of these different data sources in and conducting analysis in open source software. And it's really fun. And I love it. And it's like, oh, look at this map that I made. And it's better than these other ones because now I don't have to pan between all these different windows. I can just do it all in this project that I've put together. But, I can see myself spending, 10, 15 hours a week on that consulting work. But really where I want to spend most of my time is out working an excavator, building a cabin, cutting down trees, building playgrounds, hanging out with people and playing live music and arranging for festivals and outdoor experiences and families to come together and experience these things. And I think I'd like to weave in some of my geospatial technology into that and say, hey, look at this cool this cool model we have that's a life-size model of this land that you're on that we derived from a drone capture, right? But yeah, I don't know. I think to circle it back to the weave, right? You got to weave it back. How do you spend your time and how do you choose to spend your time? And are you spending your time in the way that you really want to spend your time based off of who you are and how you're meant to spend your time based off of who you are? Or are you spending your time on that means to an end and dumping the most precious resource you have, your time, into this thing that is not what you really want to be doing, your job, right?
I
Or are
think,
you spending your time in a job that you love and it's not just a means to an end, it is the end. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think if you have an idea of what it is, that's a huge starting point, especially if you're passionate about that idea. What I think a lot of people, myself especially, struggle with is that you don't know what jobs are going to be the right fit for you, right? You're like, oh, I'm good at math, so I go into finance, or oh, I like to paint, so I'm going to be a painter, or whatever it might be, right? But unless you have, unless you play the numbers game, like I know some people that are in a new job every year, and I'm like, that's insane behavior. Like I could personally never do that. But the benefit of doing that is eventually they'll land on something that they're either really good at or they really love doing, right? But if you stay in the same industry in a relatively the same career path, relatively the same job, then it's hard to know like, hey, maybe I should have been a plumber, and I'm working at a computer every day. Or maybe I should have been a pilot and instead, I work at a bakery. I don't know. That's the hard part is like you just don't know. And it's really difficult because you have to commit time to testing new things that might fail.
Yeah.
You have to commit resources. You have to commit money to getting an education in some of these things. Like imagine going to say like law school and then not becoming a lawyer. Like that's fucking crazy. It's a lot of investment to do that. And then just saying like I'm not going to do this. It's like, okay, well, that's time, that's money, that's energy, and now you're on a different path.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting example that's very personal to me. Um, but there's a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like you don't just throw good money after bad money because you've already spent the money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to spend my life being a lawyer just because I spent the money on law school. I'd be a good lawyer, but I don't want to do that, you
Yeah.
know? And you're right. Not that I've wanted to change jobs every year, but I do on a scale of you who, you've had a few jobs all spanning more like 4 to 5 years since you graduated from college, or more. You know, I've definitely taken a more of a winding path. My first job out of college was definitely it was an outdoor crew leader job. I was in it for I think 10 months, maybe 6 months, and then I got a job as a recruiter. I was in that for 6 months, and then I worked for the same company as an auditor, and then I moved to managing this huge global project, collecting geospatial data, and I did that for 4 years, and that was awesome. I loved it. But then you go to law school, and when you're in law school, I quickly got to work as a research assistant for a guy who was really deep into spectrum policy, and I got to understand, all of these different satellites that were being launched by Planet Labs and Starlink, and how are they licensing them. Um, and then I went and did an internship at the FCC and blended that experience, and then I went and worked for one of the largest and or most acclaimed telecommunications firms in the country. But it was like a continuous experience in telecom and spectrum and contracting and things like that, but it wasn't at the same place. And then once I left law school, it's like, do I want to be a lawyer? No. So let me go test things out, right? So, but there are these threads. So it's the folks, if they are moving consistently, if they're able to tell a compelling narrative and weave the thread through that experience, I think that they'll find what they're looking for at the salary level that they're looking for. The challenge is, I've been at a lot of conferences lately, and when you talk to these folks who are typically either at the top end of Gen X or the bottom end of the boomer generation, and they come from that old you join a company and you work in the same company for 45 years and then you retire. And it's like, who does that anymore? I don't know. I didn't like you're saying, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And so I've had this winding path, and they look at people who jump around a little bit and they're like, I'm not going to hire that person. They weren't at the same company for more than 2 years. I'm not hiring them. Anyway, I guess this is a rambling way to say like you never really know. And it's all about like following what it is that you're interested in and finding what you really like to do. And I think at the end of the day, if there was something I needed to include in who I am someone who's, when I set my mind to something, I do it.
Yeah. I think there are cool peripherals you could do too that a lot of people don't think about, like coaching on the side. Find a job that gives you the flexibility to coach on the side. I think
Yeah.
that's something I'm looking into. I've had 4 jobs since college,
Yeah.
including which is
Including what?
not a lot. 4 jobs in was that 12 years.
Yeah, that's not a lot. I mean,
And
to some
3 of them were
people,
in the same industry, basically.
yeah. I mean,
I don't
the
have that
thing,
diversity, but switching, it's like it's just it's incredibly scary. And also like I don't like other people having control over me. Um, It's a
yeah,
huge reason why I'm an entrepreneur now. I don't fit into the boys club. I don't watch sports. I don't give a shit about smoozing, schmoozing,
schmoozing.
schmoozing. I don't pander. The thing is I don't pander. I'm a very honest person. I'm not an asshole, but like I'm not gonna kiss someone's ass because I want to get ahead. Like I want to do good work and I want that work to be recognized. And as an entrepreneur, that's really easy to accomplish. I can do good work, people can recognize that work. But if I'm working for someone else and they want to fall prey to nepotism, or they want to fall prey to the person who kisses their ass or whispers sweet nothings in their ear, like I'm just not about that, you know? So I'm at the stage where it's like, okay, I haven't really tried enough career paths, but I'm on one now where I can't really see myself reverting. Like I can't see myself going to work for a company or going to work and having a boss at this point, because it's just that's I just lose that level of control. The irony is that I have, you know, a lot of bosses now because my clients, I kind of view every single client as a potential boss. Like I am beholden to them and my performance is beholden to them, but at least I can communicate in a way that I still have control over and I can make decisions that I have control over.
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, that's the experience you're describing in a hierarchical organization is a large part of why I went to be an independent consultant as well. It's just the folks who tend to be promoted into management roles in those organizations tend to be people who are really good at performing the function and doing the job of like the line level operator, and then they work their way up, right? Or they're hired from the outside and they so then you get people who think they know things and they have to assert their role and they have to protect there's like this political aspect of it where they have to protect their power and look good to their superiors. But then when they're coming from the bottom, they were really good at doing the thing, and so they feel like that's the way you have to do the thing, right? And so if you're coming in and you're working for them and you have an idea of getting up into that management role, you have to play their game and do the thing the way that they want the thing to be done, even if you know that it's not the best way to do the thing, you know?
I don't know. I have a completely different experience for you, but that's yeah, that's an interesting take.
Oh,
Sure.
God, it's the worst when it's like, hey, look, yeah, anyway. And so you have this like these tiers of middle management that you have to deal with. Um, and don't get me wrong, there are some really fantastic managers out there. I've had the luxury of working with, I mean, he was my client, but also because he's my client, I was reported to him, right, at Microsoft and Uber. He was just awesome, just incredible, so good. He was so interested in listening and hearing what people had to say and how we could do things better and understanding and finding the balance, right? He was very pragmatic. He cared about people, but at the end of the day, we had a job to do and we had to get the job done. And so how can we find the balance between getting that job done and taking care of the people so that we can do it effectively, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but then, I went and worked at a company after law school where and the lawyer space is it was all about paying your dues and just, put in your time and eventually you'll get there. It's like, no, I'm not like I'm past the point in my life where I'm interested in paying my dues. I'm going to do work and I want to be recognized for the work. And I'm not interested in just being someone's slave while they get rich as doing the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to your point, being an entrepreneur, that's why, I mean, that's a big part of why we're doing this thing, right? We want to work for ourselves, and every hour that we put into it, um, is building something for our business. So,
Yeah.
I feel really rambly, but I also feel kind of jazzed up. Um, yeah, man, I think these are cool. I think people will be interested in these. We should just put them out in full.
You are welcome to do so. I am sending you the full clip. You can put it out in full. It doesn't really match my desire for my own branding, so I'm going to do the clips that I like, you know. Um, but yeah. I also like this setup right now. I was you know how if you're an actor and you can't cry, you're supposed to look into the light? Well, I have a key light right in front of my face, so every time I look into it, my eye starts twitching on this. So like that's why I don't want to share it in full too, is like when I edit, I'll just switch to a full frame of you when I'm fucking eye twitching.
Oh
So
yeah, I like that. That's smart. And then like you can cut out when I'm drinking out of my water glass, you know?
yeah, and we have separate audio tracks too. So if someone's talking over the other person, you can splice the audio and there's a lot of interesting stuff we can do with with how we go about this. But it is nice. I like the informal stuff. I definitely get. I mean, I think we're both still a little bit tight for sure. A little bit preachy to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, from a business standpoint, I think that's fine. The whole like personal laid back piece, I don't know if I could ever really do that effectively.
Yeah, and that's the challenge though, right? Is like I challenge you to do that because at the core of who you are is integrity and honesty, right? And if you can't demonstrate and put your true self forward, how can
I
you
don't think
really
integrity and
get it?
honesty are necessarily authenticity. There's a difference because I the way I operate in terms of business and communication is obviously integrity and honesty first, but the person, everyone has different personalities. Everyone's got a personality for their family versus their friends versus business. And shifting my business personality, I've been trying to do it for years, literally long, long time. And like the biggest changes I made is like I mean, I'm more open to cussing when I'm talking to clients. Like I don't give a shit anymore. It's like, this is how I talk. I'm a person. I don't need to act like there's 5 words in the entire English language that we're not allowed to say for whatever fucking reason. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you think we curse so much because we listened to so much Eddie Murphy and George Carlin growing up?
I don't know. I was always the one who cursed the most out of my friends growing up. I don't know why that is, frankly. Because our parents never cursed. So it's not like we experienced it at home.
Well,
Uh,
we did in the car when we were listening to George Carlin and Eddie Murphy all the time.
yeah. I mean, a little bit. And then outside of that, like email communication, I've gotten a little bit less like stiff in terms of how I communicate with clients. I text clients way more than I ever used to, so that's a lot friendlier and less, more conversational, less like, "Hello, John. I would like to talk to you about," like it's a lot more like, "Hey, what's up? Can you do this for me?" type of deal. And I think clients respond really well to that. I mean, I have a client lately that's like, you know, every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yeah, we're best friends, even though we never met each other." And it's
Cool.
cool. It's cool
Yeah,
to hear
that's
that.
cool.
Just being with someone that obviously respects you, cares about how you're doing, and knows that you got their back. Like that is friendship, realistically. And that's what I was saying earlier with like separation between work and personal life. It's like that's so stupid. Like you're interacting with people that you could be friends with when companies are like, "Hey, you're not allowed to date people in the office." It's like that's also so stupid. I understand that there's a lot of reasons for that. There's
Yeah, there are a lot of really good reasons for
a lot
that.
of potential fallout, but it's like, dude, when more than 50% of your life is spent in the office, where the hell are you supposed to meet people that you get along with and have enough time to figure out whether you actually like them? I mean, fortunately, I mean, Lisa, I didn't meet from work. I met through work colleagues though. And if I hadn't befriended them, I would have never met her. So that's where I'm like creating this separation. It's silly. It's silly. I understand it if you like
Yeah,
absolutely hate your job, but get another job, dude.
but there's also this thing where like companies put out there, we're a family. And it's like, yeah, you're a family when things are going well, and that's great. I love that idea that you can build really close relationships with people at work where you have each other's backs, but at the end of the day, if upper management or the makes a bad decision or the economy makes a turn for the worst or something happens, like the business is the business. It's in it for business. Like while I
I
would
think you have
think
a
that most
jaded
businesses
approach.
are in it to make the world a better place and solve problems, the reality is a lot of businesses these days, especially when they're backed by investor um, private equity or investor capital, you're beholden to people who they don't care about the person behind the counter serving the product or typing the code. They care about the bottom line, you know? And
Yeah,
so
but
if you have to lay
that's
off
not the
half your
market.
team, they're going to do it.
I think SMBs absolutely can be a family and be a team and care about each other and still be successful. I think
Yeah.
corporations can potentially do it. There's a lot more red tape to cross. I read Simon Sinek's Infinite Game recently, and like he gave this example. I can't remember which company, but he was basically like, when there was an economic downturn, instead of doing a ton of layoffs, we basically just said, hey, we don't want to lay people off, but we can't afford this right now. Like it's just fiscally, it's not possible. So if everyone's open to a percentage pay cut, we can keep everyone on board. And the whole company agreed to a percentage pay cut rather than firing a bunch of people, you know? And it's like
That's cool. I like
that's
that.
pretty cool. So it's like I think I think a lot of people have a jaded approach because they've worked for a company that fucked them over eventually, or they see these major corporations that realistically they preach this mission statement, but it's not accurate. It's not how they actually operate, right? But just because that is the norm doesn't mean that that needs to be how it is, especially if you operate your own company, you
I
know?
think it's a really fair point to distinguish between corporations, small and medium-sized businesses, and even like really super small businesses. And I think you're absolutely right. What?
Besides a super small business.
Well, small to medium-sized business, if you say like small to medium-sized, a lot of people will think like, the plumbing company is a small to medium-sized business and they're doing $5 million a year in revenue,
Yeah.
right? But you also have the hobby, like the business model that I just put together for our family gathering space, we're looking over 5 years, on our 5 years. Oh sh shit, am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, we're looking on a 5 year time horizon to like let's see, we got a P&L here. In year five, we're looking to make in revenue 800,000, right? Which is not
Gross
much.
cumulative.
Yeah, revenue, top line revenue in year five is 800,000. Bottom line revenue, 200, EBITDA is 243,000.
That is year five, or that's year all year five, 1 through 5.
That's year five.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean it's a great thing for a family and a couple of employees, right? And that's the goal is we don't need to have something big. We don't need to be the next like nationwide farm to table enterprise. It's, hey, we want to live our life and we want to add to our community and we want to provide people a space to participate in our vision and and better themselves and the land and we want to make money while we do that, right?
Yeah.
We want that to be how we live and provide for ourselves. And so it's modest, but it's a
Huh.
risk. It's kind
Depends
of
on
ambitious,
how many
but
employees you have, how much your expenses are. That's what's crazy about running a business is like if you're an entrepreneur and you go like the contractor route, the smaller operation route where you don't have a team, you don't have an office, you don't have I mean, I operated super lean my first 2 years. I had less than $200 of expenses per month other than an accountant that I paid, and my profit margins were insane, right? It's absolutely crazy. But now after year five in business, I've had a ton of expenses. I had team members come and go. And so it's like if you're making, say, 150K a year as a business, as a solo operator, you can take home like 120, like if you do your taxes right, right? But if you have an employee or you have any higher levels of expenses, then it's like you could be a $500,000 a year business and your take home is $70,000. And it's like, how does that math work? Like it all of a sudden I'm doing way more in gross revenue, but I am making less money. And I think that's what's insane that a lot of people, don't really understand because there was this really huge anti-work movement that went around last year, right? In 2023. And it's like, okay, if you want to direct your anti-work bullshit towards the corporations that do realistically take advantage of people, go for it. Make sure you back up your case. But if you're directing it towards
Amazon,
SMBs,
Amazon's.
like actual small businesses, you have no understanding of how small businesses operate because most have incredibly low margins. Most of the owners are not taking home that much money. And to even be able to pay you in the first place, they have to make a lot of sacrifices and they have to build a lot of systems to get to that point. So if you're working for a small business and they're not a shitty boss, like they're not an asshole, you should be grateful.
No, I mean, I think that's a really good one. And especially when you're in the early stages of a business, you have to understand that there are different humps and plateaus and hurdles that you need to get past before you can really feel financially comfortable, right? Like if like just this model that I'm putting together right now, and I'm sorry to keep coming back to it, but it's like the first couple of years we're negative, right? It's negative by a lot. But is our capitalization structure sufficient to weather that storm so that the revenue we anticipate coming in, the bucket doesn't drain too fast and we go out of business, right? Like there's a certain amount of pain that you can tolerate as a business owner where you leverage, right? Like we'd like to avoid using debt or leverage in order to get this business fully functional. Like, and obviously we'll have investors, so that's a certain sort of debt and leverage, but it's not the same as like high interest bank debt or a line of credit, right? And so if you can forecast and manage the business such that you don't have to ever drop into the red in order to sustain everyone, that's the goal, right? And so a lot of that is right sizing, putting together a really good plan and understanding how can we execute to this plan and not grow beyond our means too fast. And that with that said, there's an important also level of if you are too small and you're thinking too small, then you never get past those initial plateaus to the point where you can make that larger revenue and scale so that your margins scale and grow as your revenue grows,
Yeah.
right?
Have you seen this? This is this is wild. Um, Uber's
Oh yeah, yeah,
profitability. And this
yeah,
is only from 2019. If you look at the full chart, I mean, they started at what, like 2010, somewhere around there.
yeah.
It's like negative, 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 negative. They've only been positive for like 4 quarters. It's like, dude, that's insane. That's insane. It's like your whole business to dominate a market and like destroy the taxi cab industry, which sucked to be honest. So like fuck them. But like your whole business was negative for 13 years, massive amounts of debt, and now you're only now making a profit. Like that's just wild to me that that's how so many of these larger, upstart businesses.
Well, it's interesting to think of it as debt, and I don't know if I would think of it as debt. I mean, it was investment capital, which in a certain way it's debt. You have to pay it back, but it's not the same thing as it's not debt in a traditional sense of like I'm sure that they have interest payments, right? The investors are making a bet that it's going to grow significantly, but I mean your cap table, yeah,
I mean, when you're in the red,
nuance to it, right?
millions,
There's nuance
like
beyond
tens of
just thinking of
millions
it as
of
like
dollars.
it's not like a bank loan
Yeah, but
that
you're
they're
at tens of millions of dollars a year that has to come from somewhere.
yeah, they got investment to the tune of like $60 billion.
Right.
So it and then they were making revenue, right? And so you're right. And I mean Amazon did the same thing, right? Amazon, they spent so much money to capture the market and to drive folks out of business in order to reduce
Yeah,
the
2 day delivery, massive warehouses, like that's not profitable while it's happening.
well, and low prices, right? They set the price point so low that it was unreasonable to the point where they could capture the market and drive other competitors out of business. And then once those competitors are out of business, they start raising the prices,
Yeah.
right? So like it's a long game, right? If you're in it to get rich quick, it's not going to happen. So while this business that I'm putting together, it's not profitable for 3 or 4 years. Like, can you weather the storm? Like, there's a statistic out there,
Golden
right?
handcuffs is
Um,
brutal, dude.
yeah, golden handcuffs is brutal, but um, there's what is it? This statistic? 90% of businesses go out of 90% of new businesses go out of business within the first year. But if you can get past that 3 or 4 year threshold, it's really like you've built a resilient business, right? I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but the that number falls really fast. So, like, are you planning for 5, 10 years? Like,
Approximately 18 to 20%, 22% of new businesses fail within the first year. 50% fail within the first 5 years. 30% make it to their 10th year.
wow. So that's not what I was describing at all. There's a lot of business that goes out of business between year 5 and year 10.
So yeah, I mean 70% don't make it to year 10. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, but okay, so if we back up here, it's 50%. So we got year one, 50% that existed in year one no longer exist in year five, but
I don't
30%
think
of
it's
what
a I
existed in
don't
year
think it's
one
a
still exists in year 10. So you lose 50% over the first 5 years, and you only lose 20% over the next 5 years.
I'm not
So
sure if that's how the statistics were written, but yeah, I'd have to look into it more. I mean, the big one is let more than 50% of businesses fail within 5 years, which my 5 year anniversary was last month. So what's up, pussies?
nice, huh? All right. Well, I got to get on to the kids so
Yeah.
that we can make some moves on painting this trailer. Ash is about to tape it up and paint it. We got it all cleared out and everything.
Takes a while for this to download. Once it downloads, I will